Hi, this is Randy, and welcome back to Furniture Shuffle. So I made a pretty big mistake on my next project, this dresser right here. That sometimes happens, so you just have to take a deep breath, readjust, come up with a new plan, and that's just what I did. Let me show you what happened. So this is the dresser, and when I found it at the thrift store, it was throwing off serious mid-century vibes, so I knew I had to get it. The top had some cigarette burns on it, a couple of gouges. I don't know what it is about the furniture that I find. It always is from a smoker's home. Luckily, this piece didn't stink like the first piece. So otherwise, it was in pretty good shape. It did have a big chunk out of one of the trim pieces here on one of the drawers and a chunk out of another drawer, but we'll get that all fixed up. One of the sides also had a little chunk out of the veneer there, and that's just a little foreshadowing of what my mistake was. I was actually surprised when I took the drawers out that the inside of the dresser was very, very clean. The drawers themselves are very clean as well. I mean, considering the age of the piece and some of the damage on the outside. I numbered the bottom of the drawers just to make sure I got them back into their original positions. Now it's time to tackle that broken trim piece on one of the drawers. So I decided to go ahead and fill it in with Bondo because it wasn't actually a very large piece. So I'm just taking an extra board that I had lying around and I am just putting some painter's tape over the edge. So when I clamp it to the side, the Bondo will not stick to that board, but it'll give me a nice clean edge. This is that little board clamped to the edge, and you can see about halfway up there the gap that I'm going to fill in with Bondo. I'm going to go ahead and take out some Bondo and just put it in this little plastic container here, just with my finger, gloves of course. And I need quite a bit because I have to do this trim piece plus that chunk that was out of the door there. So once I get enough of the Bondo in there, I'm just going to add the hardener to it and mix it all up so it is a consistent color. It dries pretty quickly, so you have to work pretty fast, and it'll start chunking up if you do not. So there's the hardener there, and just mix that up till it's a consistent color and then apply it. So I put an initial application of the Bondo in there, but because the groove was fairly deep, I went ahead and after the first one had dried, I went ahead and put a second coating over that. And because I taped that board, it comes right off. It did not stick to the Bondo at all. So it is just all ready to be sanded back down. Because I will be painting the bottom portion of this dresser, I only have to scrape the top two drawers, and the top of the dresser and part of the sides. The rest will be painted, so I will just have to scuff sand that. On the sides here, I'm only going to be staining a portion of the top portion of them. So I'm only scraping that part. The rest, I am just going to scuff sand because that will be painted. Everything is still going fine at this point. I am going to give the whole piece a sanding with some 120 grit sandpaper. So I'm going to go ahead and sand down the drawers here, just the top two that I will be staining. Everything's still going smoothly as I move to the sides of the dresser. I am working on the top portion, and then the bottom portion I will just be using the same 120 grit sandpaper just to give that a scuff sand because that portion I'll be painting. I'm finishing up the sides here, and then I will be moving to the top, and that's when it happened. Oh no! I ended up blowing through the veneer, and not just in one place, but two places. So I was just bebopping along, listening to a true crime podcast and not paying attention, and that veneer is very, very thin, and it just zips through it in just a second. One second it's there, the next it's not. There may have been some PG-13 language involved, but there was PG-13 language involved. But you know what? Things happen. It'll probably happen to me again. I'm sure it's happened to some of you. So you just have to suck it up and come up with a new plan. Veneer is a very thin sheet of expensive wood that is glued on top of an inexpensive wood, or in this case, pressed wood on this dresser. This is done in the manufacturing process, and what this does is if this was solid wood of the expensive wood, it would be a very, very expensive piece of furniture. So what this does is keep the prices down and makes the furniture accessible to a lot more people. And you can see here just how thin the veneer is compared to the tip of this pen. So because I burned through the veneer here on the top of this dresser, I needed to come up with a new plan. So my original thought was I could do a dark stain that would kind of hide those big mistakes that I made. And I originally was going to do kind of a lighter stain on this and the two top drawers, but I thought, oh, I'll just do a dark stain. It'll be fine. I can coordinate a color that'll work with that. But luckily, in the meantime, I sold a piece of furniture to a gal, and she came to pick it up, saw this dresser, and decided that she wanted it. I did explain that I would have to paint the top because she gave me an inspiration photo. I will show you that just a second. She was perfectly fine with that, and it all works out. And this is the inspiration photo. Now that I have a new plan, it's back to work. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the legs here just to make it easier on myself to get them all sanded down, as well as the skirt around the base. I'm going to go ahead and sand down these legs, and luckily there is no veneer. They are solid wood. So I think for my next few projects that have veneer, I am going to be a little gun shy, and I'm going to be a little extra cautious because I just do not want to burn through another veneer. I'm sanding down the skirt now, beginning with 120 grit sandpaper, and then for everything that I sanded with 120 that I'll be staining, I finished it up with 220 grit sandpaper to give it a nice fine finish. The drawers that I'm going to be painting, I am going to hand sand those with 120 grit sandpaper just to give them a nice scuff sand. And as you can see, I'm trying to stay in this little sliver of shade that I have. It's still pretty hot here in Arizona, and whenever possible, I try to sand outside. It just saves on the mess in my garage. The woman who is buying this piece chose the stain color, so I'm going to go ahead here and get the legs stained up, the skirt on the bottom of the base, the two drawers, and part of the sides. The screws that are attached to the legs here made great handles while I was staining them. Now I'm going to go ahead and put 3 coats of paint on the drawers. And alternating while the paint dries on the drawers, I'm going to be putting poly on the legs, the 2 drawers that are stained, and the sides of the dresser. I'm going to use my favorite Behr water-based polyurethane in a satin finish. It is still fairly warm here, so I am thinning the poly with just a little bit of water so it doesn't dry so quickly. In between coats, I'm just going to take my 320 grit sanding sponge just to knock down any dirt or dust that may have fallen on it while that paint and poly were drying. To clean up the hardware, I'm just going to take some Barkeeper's Friend and some super fine steel wool just to get some of that grime off of the hardware there. I don't really want to take all of it off because I really like how some of the patina accentuates the texture that is on that hardware. Here you can see how that Barkeeper's Friend really cleans up that hardware. I'm putting the legs back on now just so I can stand the dresser upright while I paint the sides. I'm taping off the sections on the side that I'm going to be painting. I am going to take some 120 grit sandpaper and scuff up the poly that I put over that stain there just so the paint has something to adhere to. Before I paint, I'm going to take just a little bit of that poly and paint over the edge of that tape just to seal that in. Wait for that to dry a little bit and then go ahead and paint, and that will give me those razor sharp lines. I'm going to go ahead and start painting, starting with the top, just because those sections that I blew through the veneer are they're just mocking me every time I see them. So I'm just going to get rid of those really quickly. And again, it's hot here, so periodically I'm going to spray my brush with a little bit of water just to thin it out a little bit, just so the paint doesn't dry so quickly and give me any streaks. The hardware is going back on, and then I am going to give the painted sections a little buff with some sealing wax, and then this project is done. Here's what the dresser looked like before, and the finished product. As always, thanks for watching. I hope I've inspired you, and be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you next time.